Okay, it says I'm live. So it's 3:20 p.m. Friday, 17th January 2020. Oh, so yeah, I went to the appointment yesterday. Not too bad. I have to get some blood tests done, and I probably have to go back again in a bit. I got lost. I went down a wrong road, and then I had to go back to find my way to the correct road. And my feet were hurting because my shoes were like very tight for some reason, so my feet were sore. Yes. So what I want to talk about here is, so I've been thinking about this, probably brought on from watching that video between Millennial Vows and Sargon of Akkad. And I don't know why I was just thinking about this, how, and I was thinking about like how I don't fit in this country, and so I was thinking about racism, and when people talk about mass immigration, or they talk about the problems with mass immigration and refugees and all of this stuff. And why am I getting drop frames? Why am I getting drop frames? Anyway, so it just occurred to me, I feel like these words like immigration, refugee, Muslim, or Arab, or whatever, African. I mean, now it's that, but before it was what? Maybe it was Indian or Chinese or whatever, Jew. I feel like these words, which seem like they are kind of not racist, like immigration and these words which people bring up, like illegal immigrant, or whatever, crime statistics committed by immigrants or whatever. I feel like these are like fake. These are like dog whistles to the actual uh, fear, disgust, and othering that is projected onto, in this case, the other, which is the racial group. Um, so to make it more concrete, for instance, when like for instance in Europe, for instance, I gotta be more specific to talk about this, but I'll talk about it in America as well. Okay, let me start with America. In America they use the N word. Like the N word was, and sometimes is, used to refer to black people, but it's not just simply referring to black people. It's a kind of way that that word is not. It's what that word connotes. The When you call a black person the N word, especially in America, um, you're calling you're saying they are somehow they're vile, they're disgusting, they're like, it's like, it's not simply that they're black, like it's not simply that they have black skin or that they look have a certain way. It's just, it's like associating, it's like everything that is evil, rotten, you project that hatred onto this person, and this person personifies what is inhuman. It's like they're like it's like their rottenness. Maybe I'm, overemphasizing this, but that's how it's like you hate these people because they are disgusting or something. This is what it is. Racism isn't simply some kind of abstract concept of immigration and crime statistics. It's actually much more visceral. It's a very psychological. It's a very deeply rooted phenomenon. It's like something where you um, it probably arose in evolution whenever you were having this tribal thing where you have your own group and you have the other group and you wanted to protect your group, or it could even be a family thing. It's like this kind of very, very deep rooted thing. Another example of this type of phenomenon is, for example, in India. I mean, in India, you have people who are ostensibly the same, relatively similar ethnic groups. I mean, like racial group, but they might be different ethnicities. But you have the caste system in India, right? And in the with that system in place, the people who are of that lower class, I don't know what they call them, that they have the same kind of position in society, or similar position to what perhaps what the African American, the N word used to describe them would have had. So these caste, lower caste people in India would have occupied a similar kind of position in Indian society. And similar to, for example, in Nazi Germany, the Jews, the especially the ones who were who were very Jewish looking, they would have occupied a similar place there. So there are like throughout like all these different countries and cultures, you have this kind of demonizing, this kind of very, even gypsies, for instance, in Europe, they're seen as criminals. They're seen as having a bad character. They might steal, rob, rape, murder you. The fear of the immigrant man, the Arab, the Muslim, maybe even like someone like, I think in England they have the fear of the Pakistani or something. Because there was that, and the millennial talks about that the child rape gang or something. I mean, yes. Okay, let me just not talk about that. But yes, that did happen. But there was that rape gang in England, but the point is, so yeah, people can use that as an example to say, look, see, these people are like this. They are like, vile and disgusting. um, I shouldn't be laughing at that. I think that situation is I don't really understand it that well. So what I'm going to say is, throughout various cultures, various countries, you do get this kind of othering of this, like, the boogeyman, this kind of thing where. So this is the source of racism. This is the source of hatred. So whenever people cite immigration is causing unemployment, is causing crimes and all these things, what's behind that is actually a fear of this other. I think that's important to keep in mind, because when I was watching that debate between Millennial Woes and Sagan of Akkad, Sagan of Akkad was talking about like what they were talking about the burqa, and Sagan of Akkad was saying, why they're saying, he was saying, the reason English people don't like the burqa is because it has something to do with privacy rights. People don't like, English people don't like deception or something, and the burqa hides you from seeing their face. Whereas I think millennial wars was sort of, I don't know if he exactly said it, but I'm assuming he would say something like, and this is my assumption, that the burqa is different. It's it's not because of privacy rights necessarily. It's because it looks different. It's foreign. I don't think he said that, but I'm assuming that I will say this, that yeah, um, yes. So even in this country, for instance, you know, and I guess let me just talk about miscegenation. Why are people like so like against miscegenation? And I'm going to talk particularly, well, I guess it could apply to all cultures, but let's, for instance, take the example of, you know, why is it, why is this kind of uh, dislike of, for instance, uh, black men dating or marrying white women, or it could even be like brown or whatever. Um, what is the kind of fear, or what is the psychological, what is the basis of that kind of dislike or aversion? It's because again the black man, especially the black man, it's not necessarily the black woman, but the black man or the brown man or the Arab or the Muslim or the Pakistani or whatever, is seen as like, again, they represent things that are impure. It's just the look of the person, the way the person looks, the way the color, the skin, their features, the way they smell, the way they behave, the way they talk. When people talk about racism, you should understand that it's very, like a very tangible thing. It's not an abstract concept. When you're talking about, yeah, you're dealing with tangible things like the skin, like the smell. This is what people are averse to. It's not some statistic. It's not some number on some spreadsheet. It's actually quite in your face. um, you can spot it. You can spot difference. You can spot like uh, what is not you, what is them. You can say very clearly us and them. That's why Millennial Wo says things like, oh, you can look and say who someone, like if someone is white or not. When the people say what is white, it's not like such an abstract thing. Yes, it might have. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, well, being white is much more of a tangible thing than it is an abstract concept. It's basically comes out how someone looks. It's not about what their gene is. It's about how someone looks. um, and that's how people are gonna categorize, classify. um, anyway, so yeah, miscegenation. So I was thinking like how maybe it's like, so the black, the brown, the man is like impure, and this impure uh, essence is if this impurity mixes with the purity of the white woman. uh, I don't know. Yeah, there's this contrast between white is pure, black is evil, or something, and you get the an abomination. The child is an abomination. It's like if you're creating a monster when you combine this. So I don't know. I was just thinking about it. Um, Yeah, that's definitely a kind of a very fear where like the white men, for instance, they're very protective of white women. Uh, I don't know. Maybe is this? I feel like that's a very big thing. I don't think we can just sort of ignore it. Um, it might not be a very modern idea. Um, I wonder if other cultures feel the same about their women property. But I don't know. I feel like it's a real thing. I feel like uh, miscegenation, this interracial dating thing is a real kind of uh, yeah, it's a social um, issue. It's not something that's like benign. It's not interracial dating or marriage or something. It is a socially loaded uh, concept, practice, phenomenon. Um, and let me go back to that Rotherham thing where like we had those rape gangs, and I don't know much about it, but so I probably shouldn't talk. But you know, people point to this and say, "Oh, look, this is you know," and yeah, this is like so symbolic of how um, migrants treat or see white women, like as like, oh yeah, like they're prey for the savage sexual urges of the brown and black men who are very who have very strong sexual drives or something, who are like savage and uncivilized. But but there's also I think in those communities there was also the complication of like I think these children, young girls, they were from dysfunctional families. It was a poor neighborhood, and I guess when you're in that kind of an environment, you're more likely to be exploited. Um, and when I say exploited, I mean I don't know like what these guys were like. I mean, were they like evil? Were they like they I don't know. I mean, were these the guys who participated in this really evil, or were they? Um, I don't know. Maybe they were evil. Or were they caught up in a culture? Because it happened over like years, decades, even. So maybe if you are a young, let's say, a Pakistani boy growing up in that, and you grow, because quite a few of them were like born in the UK, I think. And if you grow up in such a culture, and maybe and you have your I don't know, peers engaging in that, maybe it might be some kind of a like a thing where you get caught up in it, and so I feel like there is some kind of a complication here. It's not as clear cut as the Muslims are, preying on the local native white children, girls, um, because you know it's not like all of those guys were imported from the outside. Some of them, I think, were born there, grew up there. So it's like they are caught up in it. Um, I'm not saying it's right, but I just think that that might be a bit more complicated than just simply saying this is like the evil Muslim preying on local white children or young girls, children, Um, and that is a very emotional issue, right? When you bring it up, it's like, oh, it's like, again, it's sort of like, it's very visceral. It's like you hate them now. Look at these people. Look at these invaders. They're coming in. They're hurting our children. They're. So anyway, the point I want to make is racism is very visceral. It's very tangible. It's based in this kind of very primal instinct to protect God, your group against the other group. Um, you know, and another thing is, I mean, if a member of your group does something bad, or your group, whether you identify with your race or not, it's like, I feel like if a black person does bad, like, other people are blamed for it because they're black. I feel like, I don't know, that just seems unfair. And another thing is, like, I don't know, my tooth is really like, I need to get a root canal done. It's like, this distinction people make between the respectable black person and the N black person. I just hate that distinction. Why? Why? It's like you're creating. I don't know. No, don't make that distinction. There is no such thing. I don't like that. I don't like it when people try to uh, do that. Um, for instance, anyway, I'm getting very tired. Um, I am. I am a part. I am an other in this country. This is something I noticed walking. Like yesterday, I was walking down the street. Um, like, for instance, there are people who look like me, who look like me, but they are whom I would call, they are not like me, because I feel like I am the N word. And there are the respectable, maybe not the respectable, the people who have, maybe it's the way I carry myself. I feel like there are people who look like me who behave very differently from me, maybe because of their life experiences are different from me. But I feel like people don't like me because I embody the other. I feel like I feel like I am like this despised, hated person because of my race, ethnicity, and some of that you put, my gender issues, and but I don't deal with being trans a lot, but I do deal with being, you know, a racial or ethnic minority. I feel like I feel like such a minority, and I, yes, it kind of sucks. Uh, who is the victim? You know, people like millennial woes complain about how, like, white people are being hated and despised by the progressive left, or especially like these the people who are not just white, but who are like in the left. I don't know, something like that. It's like, I don't know, you know. I think if maybe 100, 200 years from now, maybe then I think white people might be a true minority. But right now, even if they might not have the political voice to say the things like Millennial Woes says, they still are in control of the institutions of power on this planet. I mean, the places on this planet where wealth and military power is situated is overwhelmingly in white Western nations, America, Europe. There is no other area on this planet which can challenge the West, white Western countries. There's no question. So even so, yeah, politically, yeah, it might be difficult for people to claim that white people are being oppressed. But maybe 200 years from now, it might be different. I don't know. Maybe the world might have changed. So yeah. So are immigrants victims, or are they um, like evil? I don't know. I feel like I feel like there's a lot of a lack of clarity on this. I still think like if you're an immigrant and if you're like a minority, like an ethnic or racial minority, and you live in the West, you are especially in Europe, maybe not in America, but in Europe and maybe even to an extent in Australia, for instance. Uh, but especially in Europe, because I think Europe, particularly if you're an ethnic minority, um, yeah, Europe, maybe not in England, but definitely on the continental Europe. Yeah, you're a minority. I don't know. So that's my rant. I thought this rant might be actually a bit more better than it actually ended up being. It's like it was better in my head, but when I actually said it out loud, I felt like it just didn't feel the same. It felt more emotional in my head, but it didn't feel that strong when I said it. Um, mm, yeah. So there is real racism is rooted in a very basic response to the other, and fake racism is dog whistling. It's talking about mass immigration, crime statistics. That's the fake racism. If someone talks about refugees and all of that, just point them towards the fear, loathing, contempt of the other, of the proverbial N word, or the archetype of the N word, the gypsy, the Jew, the that lower caste, the caste system. Uh, you know, that's what they're actually talking about. You know? And it's a visceral loathing, contempt, hatred. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. Okay, we'll end this now. Wait a minute, I should actually press the end button on here on YouTube.